So, good day everyone. I am Marie Cris Di Grano, 3E18 from Tanawan Cluster. And I'll be presenting different learning activities fall into three domains: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. So the cognitive domain develops knowledge and thinking skills. The psychomotor domain builds physical skills and coordination, and the affective domain shapes values, attitudes, and emotions. So together, these domains make learning holistic, engaging the mind, body, and character. So the first one is cognitive domain, and the topic is about human body systems. So the first activity is identify the major organs of the respiratory system. So I use the verb identify, and this belongs to the cognitive domain because it requires recognition and recall of factual information. Learners must know the lungs, trachea, and diaphragm before they can understand how breathing works. So the second, describe the function of the circulatory system in transporting oxygen. So I use the verb describe, and this belongs to the cognitive domain because it involves comprehension. So learners explain how the heart pumps blood, how oxygen is carried, and how vessels distribute nutrients. So this shows understanding beyond memorization. The third is differentiate between voluntary and involuntary muscles. So I use the verb differentiate, and this belongs to the cognitive domain since it requires analysis. Students must compare skeletal muscles we control with cardiac and smooth muscles that work automatically, recognizing distinctions between them. The fourth is explain how the digestive system breaks down food into nutrients. So I use the verb explain, and it belongs to the cognitive because it requires learners to articulate the process of digestion, from chewing to nutrient absorption, showing comprehension of cause and effect relationships. And the fifth one is analyze the interaction between the nervous and muscular systems during movement. So I use the verb analyze, and it belongs to the cognitive domain because it requires breaking down complex interactions. So learners examine how the brain sends signals, how muscles respond, and how coordination allows movement. These verbs clearly demonstrate how learners engage their thinking skills, starting from remembering and understanding, moving to analyzing, and finally evaluating complex relationships. So, the next category is affective domain. Topic, circulatory system and heart health. So the first activity, acknowledge the importance of the heart in sustaining life. So I use the verb acknowledge, and it belongs to the affective domain because it requires learners to become emotionally aware of the heart's role. Instead of just memorizing its function, students recognize its significance and connect it to their own well-being. This awareness builds respect for the circulatory system. The second activity is support healthy habits such as eating nutritious food and avoiding excessive fats. So I use the verb support, and it belongs to affective domain because it reflects attitudes and values toward health. Learners show commitment when they support practices that protect the heart. This goes beyond knowledge. It demonstrates willingness to act on beliefs. The third activity is respect the need for rest and stress management to maintain heart health. So I use the verb respect and it belongs to affective domain because it demonstrates values and attitudes toward self-care. Respecting the body means learners acknowledge that lifestyle choices directly affect the circulatory system. This builds responsibility and empathy for oneself. The fourth is express concern for family members by reminding them to monitor blood pressure or cholesterol levels. So I use the verb express and it belongs to affective domain because it involves sharing emotions and values openly. By expressing concern, learners show empathy and care, which strengthens relationships and highlights the importance of preventive health. And the fifth one is commit to regular physical activity such as jogging or cycling to strengthen the heart. So I use the verb commit and it belongs to affective domain because it reflects long-term dedication to a value or belief. Commitment means learners internalize exercise as part of their lifestyle, ensuring the circulatory system remains strong. This demonstrates the highest level of effective learning, values guiding consistent behavior. And the last category is the psychomotor domain. And the topic is circulatory system, heart and blood flow. The first activity is detect pulse rate by placing fingers on the wrist or neck. So I use the verb detect and it belongs to the psychomotor domain because it requires learners to physically locate and feel the pulse using their fingers. This activity involves fine motor coordination and sensory awareness, showing how bodily action is used to observe circulatory function. Number 2, watch the movement of blood through a model or animation of the circulatory system. So I use the verb watch and it belongs to psychomotor because it requires learners to use visual tracking skills. Observing blood flow in a model or animation involves eye coordination and attention, reinforcing how psychomotor learning includes controlled sensory actions. 3. Show the correct way of using the diaphragm during deep breathing. So, I use the verb show and it belongs to psychomotor domain because it requires learners to physically demonstrate a skill. In this case, learners place one hand on their chest and the other on their abdomen. Then inhale deeply so the abdomen rises more than the chest. This bodily action highlights the use of the diaphragm in proper breathing. 4. Construct a simple 3D model of the heart using clay or cardboard. So I use the verb construct and it belongs to psychomotor domain because it requires learners to physically assemble materials into a working model. Cutting, shaping, and arranging parts demand fine motor skills and creativity, highlighting hands-on learning through bodily action. And the last one is display the finished heart model in front of the class and explain its parts. So I use the verb display and it belongs to the psychomotor domain because it requires learners to physically present their work. So positioning the model, pointing to its parts, and handling it carefully involve bodily coordination and purposeful movement, reinforcing communication through action. And that's all for my presentation. And thank you for watching and listening. God bless.